All right, so let's dive into something I think we all use every single day, probably without even thinking about it too much. Computers.
Yeah.
We got a ton of info from you guys about how computers are used in everyday life, and I think we're going to be able to pull out some really interesting stuff from this.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of wild how computers went from these, huge machines that took up entire rooms to being like so integrated into our lives, we barely even notice them anymore.
It's true, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go beyond just the basic stuff.
Yeah.
We really want to uncover the surprising ways computers are shaping our world, like literally everywhere. Classrooms, hospitals, our living rooms. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's everywhere.
And one area where computers have had a seriously huge impact, I think we can all agree on this, is education.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah. I mean, oh my gosh. Remember, like, carrying around those textbooks that weighed like 1,000 pounds?
Oh, yeah.
Now it's all online learning, virtual classrooms. We have like an insane amount of information at our fingertips. It's crazy.
Yeah. And all this has led to, all these new developments like personalized learning. Our sources talk about all these platforms that like adapt to each student's pace, learning style. They provide tailored content, feedback. It's like having a personal tutor for every subject.
That's wild. So that sounds amazing for students, but I'm curious, like, how are teachers adapting to this whole new landscape of education?
Well, our sources actually show that teachers are using computers to create like more dynamic, engaging lessons. They're using interactive software, adding multimedia elements, even get this, connecting with students remotely through like virtual reality field trips.
Wow. VR field trips. That's pretty cool.
It is, and it goes beyond that. Computers are helping teachers streamline things like grading, providing feedback. There's actually this quote from one of the teachers in our sources that says, "With computers, I can easily create presentations, send homework through emails, and even conduct online exams."
That is so different from the days of red pens and stacks of paper. Oh my gosh. But I do have a question. With all this tech, is there like a concern that students are going to lose like those critical thinking skills, those like really essential skills?
It's a really good question, and it definitely is a point of debate, Some people are worried about this over-reliance on technology, but others think that computers can actually make critical thinking better.
Really?
By giving students access to all these different sources, encouraging them to analyze information from different perspectives.
So it's not just about like having the information, it's about knowing how to think about it and evaluate it, right?
Exactly, and that's where the teacher's role becomes even more important.
I see.
They're like guides, helping students make sense of all this information and develop those critical thinking skills.
They're kind of like digital navigators.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
So, okay, we've talked about how computers have revolutionized education.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the business world. I mean, businesses pretty much can't function without computers these days. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, our sources are very clear about this. Computers are the backbone of how business is done today. It's not just spreadsheets and word processing anymore.
Right.
We're talking about these complex systems for managing data, communicating across the world, even like tracking every little thing a business does.
Yeah. And I know our sources highlight how companies are using this like super sophisticated software now
Oh, yeah.
for things like sales tracking, employee management. They can even predict future trends. Like, it's kind of crazy how much data is being used.
Yeah, it is amazing. And it's not just these big corporations either. Small businesses, entrepreneurs, they're using online platforms, social media to reach customers all over the world.
It's really like leveled the playing field in a lot of ways.
It has.
But I am kind of curious about like what's the impact on the employees? Like, what are people actually experiencing when they use computers in their work every single day?
Well, we've got this quote from one employee in our sources that says, "I use a computer every day for emails, video meetings, and working on reports." And then a manager added to that, "Without computers, it would be nearly impossible to, organize files, process payrolls, and communicate with clients, all over the world."
So it sounds like computers become like essential
Yeah.
for a lot of workers. But does all this, this technology come at a cost?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are there concerns about jobs being replaced by robots and AI?
That's a really valid concern, and it's definitely something we're going to explore more later on. But
Oh.
for now, let's move on to an area where computers are, literally saving lives. Healthcare.
Okay, now we're talking. I want to hear about this. I know we all hear about these, amazing medical breakthroughs,
Uh-huh.
but What exactly are computers doing in the healthcare world?
Well, for one, they're managing like massive amounts of patient data,
Oh, yeah.
helping doctors track medical histories and make more accurate diagnoses.
Right.
But the really cool stuff, the cutting edge stuff, is happening with AI-powered diagnostic tools.
AI in healthcare. I've heard a little about that. But how does it actually work?
Well, our sources describe how these AI systems, they can actually analyze like medical images, things like X-rays, MRIs. They can detect these really subtle patterns and things that like a human eye might miss.
Wow.
They're even being used to predict like patient outcomes and personalized
That's
treatments.
amazing. It's like having a superpowered medical detective working with the doctors.
Exactly. And it's not just about like diagnosis either. Computers are actually assisting in surgery now, allowing for these like minimally invasive procedures and greater precision.
Yeah.
There's a quote from a doctor in one of our sources actually that says, "With the help of computers, I can check patient histories, analyze test results, and even consult specialists online."
It's like making healthcare more accessible, more efficient.
Exactly. And patients are also benefiting. They can
Yeah.
schedule appointments online, get digital prescriptions. There's telemedicine platforms where they can talk to doctors remotely.
Oh, yeah. I definitely have done that online appointment booking and digital prescriptions.
Hmm.
It's way more convenient. But it does make you wonder, are there any, like, downsides to this increasing, use of technology in healthcare?
That's a great question and one we should definitely dig into more. But for now, let's switch gears and talk about something a little bit lighter entertainment.
Okay, now we're talking. I mean, computers are pretty much synonymous with entertainment at this point.
You're not wrong. We
Yeah.
use them to watch movies, listen to music, play video games, connect with friends on social media. It never ends.
And it's not even just about, like, consuming entertainment, right? Computers are like these amazing tools for creativity.
Mm.
People are making music, designing video games, writing, creating art. I mean, it's endless.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting is that social aspect of computers and entertainment. You can connect with people who share your interests, whether it's through like gaming communities online, fan forums, social media. It really brings people together.
Definitely. It's like creating a sense of community, shared experience. And speaking of shared experiences, I'd love to hear from some of the people in our sources about how they're using computers for entertainment.
Sure. Well, we have a teenager in our sources who says, "I love playing games on my computer. It helps me relax and have fun with my friends online."
Okay.
And a parent added, "We use the computer to stream our favorite shows and stay updated with the latest news."
It's so true. I mean, who doesn't love a good Netflix binge or like checking out the latest memes? It's amazing to think how much the entertainment landscape has changed because of computers.
It really has. And honestly, we're only scratching the surface here. In part 2 of our deep dive, we'll be exploring even more surprising ways computers are integrated into our everyday lives. Get ready. It's going to get really interesting.
Welcome back. We've been talking about how computers have completely revolutionized education, the way businesses work, and even healthcare.
Yeah.
But I think it's so easy to forget how deeply embedded computers are in almost everything we do every day.
Oh, absolutely. They're everywhere. And we often don't even realize, like you said, how much we rely on them.
It's true. Even just thinking about shopping online. A few clicks and boom, you've got a package at your door
Yeah.
2 days later. It's crazy. We don't even think about the algorithms and the crazy logistics that are happening behind the scenes to make that happen.
It is pretty wild when you think about it. And it's not even just the ease of buying stuff. Computers have totally changed the way we shop, giving us access to so many different products, letting us compare prices and, reading reviews from other people who've bought the same stuff. Our sources really emphasize how much this has empowered consumers.
Yeah, one online shopper in our sources even said, I can buy anything from clothes to groceries with just a few clicks on my computer. It's pretty incredible how much control we have as consumers now.
It really is. And, this also applies to banking, too. Remember, waiting in line at the bank forever to deposit a check or get cash. Now we can, do everything online. We can transfer money in seconds, even invest in the stock market from our phones, all thanks to computers.
It's so convenient, but I do wonder, does all this convenience come with, any risks? Are we, putting too much trust in these systems?
It's a really important question, and I think as our, financial lives become more and more digital, cybersecurity becomes like the most important thing. Our sources really emphasize strong passwords, two-factor authentication, being really aware of like phishing scams and stuff like that.
It's definitely something we should all be more careful about. But let's move on to another area where computers have had a huge impact: navigation.
Oh yeah. You remember those like huge paper maps we used to use?
I still have a few in my car, just in case.
Yeah, but you're right. GPS and all these navigation apps have completely changed the game. We get real-time traffic updates. We can find the fastest route, discover like hidden gems along the way. It's like having a personal tour guide in your pocket.
It is. And it's not just about getting from, point A to point B. Our sources talk about how these navigation systems are being used for all sorts of things, like tracking package deliveries, figuring out the best routes for public transportation, all that stuff.
And think about all the data that these systems are collecting and analyzing just to make our lives easier and more efficient. It's pretty amazing.
It is.
One traveler we have in our sources said, using my phone's GPS helps me find the best routes and avoid traffic. But, it does raise an interesting question. Are we becoming too dependent on these systems? What happens if the technology, like, fails or we lose our connection?
That's a really good point. It's like we're trading our own, like, navigation skills for the convenience of, technology.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's not just navigation, right? Think about, like, smart homes. We can control our lights, the temperature, appliances, our security systems, all from our phones, or even just using our voice, all because of computers.
It's like straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
But, it makes you think, are there any, like, downsides to all this connectivity? Are we sacrificing our privacy for convenience? Are we becoming too reliant on technology to do even, like, the most basic things for us?
These are definitely questions we should be thinking about, but for now, I think we should just appreciate how incredible this technology is and how far we've come. Computers have evolved so quickly. They're smaller, faster, more powerful than anyone could have imagined.
It is mind-blowing when you really think about it.
And this pace of innovation, it's not slowing down. Which brings us to part 3 of our deep dive, where we're going to explore just how much potential computers have to shape the future. Get ready, because it's going to be really fascinating.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into computers in everyday life. It's been quite a journey so far, like really exploring how these machines have just become such a huge part of our world.
It really has. We've seen how they've, revolutionized everything from how we learn and shop to how we work, how we get healthcare. I mean, it's pretty wild.
It is, but like anything, like any powerful tool, there's always like, two sides.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And in this last part, we're going to like really dig into some of those bigger questions about, could there be downsides to relying on computers so much? Like, are there things we should be thinking about more carefully?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest concerns that comes up over and over again in our sources is this issue of privacy. As our lives become more digital, it's like we're leaving this giant trail of data everywhere we go. Everything from what we search for online to what we buy to, even where we are at any given time.
It is a little unsettling to think about all that information being out there. But, like who's collecting it? What are they actually doing with all this data?
Well, it's a whole mix of like tech companies, advertisers, even governments, Our sources talk about how they're using these algorithms to personalize our online experiences, target us with ads. I mean, they can even like predict our behavior.
So, I guess like on one hand, it can be pretty convenient to like get personalized recommendations and like, see ads for things I'm actually interested in.
Sure.
But then it's also like, well, am I always being watched and like analyzed? Like, where's the line between convenience and like somebody being in my business too much?
That's the big question, and it's tough to answer, honestly. But one thing's for sure, we all need to be way more aware of the data we're sharing and what could happen with that data.
Yeah, I think, our sources also bring up this whole issue of cybersecurity.
Oh, right.
As we like rely more and more on computers for, really important stuff like our banks, transportation, energy. Doesn't that make us more vulnerable to like being hacked?
It absolutely does. And the stakes are huge. Like a serious cyber attack it could really disrupt all those essential services, cripple businesses, even, mess with national security.
That's a scary thought. So what can we do? Like, how do we protect ourselves and keep those systems safe?
Well, I mean, for us as individuals, it's all about practicing good cyber hygiene,
Yeah.
strong passwords, being careful about those phishing scams, keeping our software updated, all that stuff.
Okay, so what about like on a bigger scale though? Like what can organizations or governments do?
Well, governments and organizations, they need to be putting money into strong cybersecurity measures. They've got to have plans in place if something does happen, and they need to be working together like internationally to really fight this cybercrime.
It sounds like this is a constant back and forth between, the people trying to break in and the people trying to keep them out.
Yeah, kind of like an arms race. And as technology gets more advanced, those threats, those ways of attacking, they're going to change too.
Right. Right. So, okay, we've talked about privacy, we've talked about security, but there's another big worry that our sources mention, and that's the impact of all this on jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. With AI, artificial intelligence, and automation becoming more and more sophisticated, there's this real fear that machines are just going to take over jobs that humans do, and we'll see a lot of people losing work, a lot of instability in the economy.
I can definitely see why people are worried about that. Are there any industries in particular that are like, more at risk for this kind of thing?
Yeah, our sources point to a few, like manufacturing, transportation, customer service. Those are areas where we're already seeing automation having a big impact.
So what happens to the people whose jobs get taken over by these technologies?
Yeah, that's a big question. It's a complex one. I mean, some experts think that, okay, there will be new jobs created in fields related to all this technology and data, but others think we need to, like, rethink work entirely, things like universal basic income or even a shorter work week. Those are ideas that are being thrown around.
It's a conversation we definitely need to be having for sure. But, I want to switch gears just for a minute and look ahead a little bit. Like what can we expect to see from computers, in the future?
Well, based on what we're seeing right now, I think it's safe to say that AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, all that stuff, it's going to be even more a part of our lives.
Yeah.
We're already seeing it, right? Self-driving cars, personalized medicine, facial recognition, all that.
It's exciting, but it's also like a little bit, I don't know, a little bit unnerving too.
Sure, sure.
Like what are some of the good things and maybe some of the not so good things that might come out of these technologies?
Well, I mean, the potential benefits are huge. AI could really help us tackle some of the world's biggest problems. Climate change, disease, things like that. But then there are these worries, about bias built into the algorithms, could be more job losses, and there's a whole question of like the ethics of creating machines that can, think and learn kind of like humans can. That's a whole other layer of stuff to consider.
Yeah, it really does feel like we're like entering this uncharted territory.
We are, and I think it's never been more important to really be thoughtful and have conversations about, what role do we want computers to play in shaping the future? Like, what do we want that to look like?
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I mean, I've got a lot to think about. Computers are they're just so ingrained in how we live now, and it seems like their influence is just going to get stronger.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true.
The big takeaway for me is we need to like actively be part of shaping this future. We have
Yeah.
to understand the technology, think about what it all means, and make choices about how we want to use it.
I totally agree. Knowledge is power. The more we know about computers and how they're changing the world, the better we'll be able to, deal with the challenges and really make the most of the opportunities that are out there.
Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey into the world of computers in everyday life. We hope you've learned a lot. Maybe you've got some new ways of thinking about things, and maybe you even had a couple of those, oh, wow, moments along the way. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those questions.